So Doctor Who has had a pretty big range of guest stars over the years. They've ranged from the very big to the still starting out to the frankly huge. I mean, you go from ones such as relative newcomers such as Noel Clarke and Freema Agyeman, up to kind of big time greats like Andrew Garfield, Michael Gambon, and even Ian McKellen. All of these have starred in Doctor Who at some point. So I thought today was something a little different. I would go through series one at least and talk about some of the guest stars that maybe slipped past you. Some that probably knew were there from the start, and some that you may not have even noticed were there. So I'm going to do series one on this, and then if I like it, then I might do more noting guest stars from the other series as they go. But to start us off in series one, we've got Mark Benson. Now, some people may remember Mark Benson for his role as the teacher Daniel Chalk in the kind of popular soap opera Waterloo Road. I personally knew him growing up as the big boss Max DeLacy on the children's comedy series Scoop. But Mark Benson, he appears in the very first episode, Rose, as a conspiracy theorist who Rose goes to talk to, and who is eventually murdered by the Autons. So he's good in there, I admit. Next up, Zoe Wanamaker. Now, Zoe Wanamaker is one of those big time actors, and she's done a lot more than I personally will be able to give her credit for. I haven't seen all of her work, but the two roles that I'd like to talk about with her here are, of course, Ariadne Oliver in the Poirot series, and Potterheads will know her as Madam Hooch, who I believe she only properly appears in the first movie, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's or Sorcerer's Stone, depending on where you are. But of course, she appeared in the first two series of Doctor Who, voicing Lady Cassandra, the kind of the skin trampoline, who of course is out for evil. So yeah, she does a good job both times, and you could argue kind of whether her episodes are any good, but yeah, she is a big name and she is in there. Then you've got Eve Miles. Now, from The Unquiet Dead, there are two names you could pick up. There's Simon Callow, or maybe Gallo, I can't remember which, who the only I don't know any of his previous work, but you could say he does have kind of a bigger part in the universe. As while he did pick up in The Unquiet Dead, he also appears 6 years later in The Wedding of River Song, appearing as in the alternate timeline as part of a BBC interview with Charles Dickens. But the big name that I chose from that episode is Eve Miles. Now, while I personally don't know that much about Eve Miles' work, she does also pop up and have a bigger role in the universe, later playing the descendant of her character Gwyneth, Gwen Cooper, in the BBC Three series Torchwood. So yeah, she ultimately expanded her role and made something much bigger than some of its parts. Now, Aliens of London had several big names that were in there, but the three that I'm choosing to go with here are Annette Badland, Steve Spears, and Penelope Wilton. Now, Annette Badland has got quite a few big names under her belt, but the one that I personally remember her for was for her role as the kind of Doomsday Dora in the children's series, or tweenage series, The Sparkle Mystery. Essentially, she was the kind of big person in charge of the experiments that happened when suddenly all adults disappeared from the face of the earth. So, yeah, I personally loved her in that series, and while I didn't get to see all of it before I eventually grew out of it, yeah, it's good to see her in there. Steve Spears is one of those actors who I personally feel he's one of those ones that you would kind of see him in a certain show or a movie and you think, oh yeah, it's that guy from that thing. I know that guy. But then when you actually look up his filmography, you realise he's done a lot more than you give him credit for. I personally know him as the kind of loving, caring dad Steve in the teenage series Sadie J. But then when I looked up his filmography, he's also had roles in Star Wars The Phantom Menace, Aragon, and Pirates of the Caribbean 2. So, yeah, he's done a lot, and he's a name and a face you might well remember in the show. He ends up playing a police officer Slovene who eventually Noel and, well, Mickey and Jackie end up detonating. So, it's fun seeing that. Also, Annette Badland plays a character named Margaret Blaine, another Slytherin, who eventually does pop up later in the series in the episode Boomtown, when she's trying essentially to escape from planet Earth and destroy it in the process. And Penelope Wilton. Now, Penelope Wilton, once again, she's got a few big roles under her belt, but the one that I will personally remember her for is in the role of the mother Barbara in the Cornetto film Shaun of the Dead. Take me to Scar, go round Mum's, kill Phil, grab Mum, go over to Liz's, have a cup of tea, and wait for all of this to blow over. Yeah, she's in there. And also, the next kind of big name that I have to talk about, while I don't particularly remember any particularly big names from Dalek, the next one that I have to talk about is another Shaun of the Dead co-star for her, Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg ends up playing the editor in the Doctor Who episode The Long Game. And frankly, if I need to explain to you who Simon Pegg is, then frankly, I don't know who you are. I feel everyone should know at least one Simon Pegg role, whether it's for stuff like Spaced, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, Paul. You gotta know at least one Simon Pegg role. And here he is in Doctor Who, playing a rather evil editor who also attempts to steal the TARDIS. But obviously that doesn't happen. Moving on a little bit, the next big name that I picked up is in the Empty Child and the Doctor Dances, where you've got another two there. Now, John Barrowman pops up, of course, and would later become a fan favourite character of Captain Jack Harkness, and would also go on to play the role of Malcolm Merlin in Arrow. And once again, I feel John Barrowman's grown so big at this point that it's almost impossible not to know him. But the other big name that you might want to take from this particular episode is Richard Wilson. Some people may remember him as Gaius from the BBC series Merlin. Okay, he's the kind of mentor character to Colin Morgan's Merlin, and he's actually the first kind of Merlin kind of character actor who probably pops up in the show, although we would get another 4 more as time went on, with appearances from Anthony Head, Angel Colby, Colin Morgan, and John Hurt as time went on. I'll get to those if I choose to go on with this. Now, when Bad Wolf came around, I'm quite surprised looking back they actually managed to get these actors, because they actually did. For those who don't remember, Bad Wolf had the Doctor, Rose, and Captain Jack Harkness stuck in game shows, where if you lost, you essentially got killed, or at least it appeared that you did. And this was at the time when these shows were kind of still popular. Big Brother, The Weakest Link, and seemingly something similar to What Not to Wear. But they actually did manage to get the presenters to actually voice their robot counterparts. They managed to get Anne Robinson in to voice Davina, to voice the android, Davina McCall to voice the Davina droid, and of course Susanna Constantine and Trinny Woodall to voice Trinity and Zuzanna. Which, it's odd thinking back. I mean, those shows, I believe, are now all gone. I mean, the presenters are still around. They're still living, they're still kicking, they're still working, I presume. But just looking back at this time where it's so clearly dated now. I mean, The Weakest Link and Big Brother have now both ended. I don't know about What Not to Wear, but just the fact they managed to get those people in to actually voice their robot counterparts, it's pretty cool to see. And the other big name that I feel I should mention from Series 1, kind of in Bad Wolf and The Party of the Ways, is Nisha Nayar. Now, for those who grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s, you may remember Nisha Nayar as the social worker Elaine the Pain Boyack on the series Tracy Beaker. And watching Nayar in the role of Elaine and watching her in the role of the female programmer in Doctor Who, it's quite funny to watch. I mean, Nisha Nayar is a fine actress. She's done well, but just watching these two completely different roles, it's actually kind of fascinating. Just watching one character who's just such a pushover, who's such a people pleaser, and just trying to do what she thinks is best, and often kind of not coming out the best for it, and then just watching someone who casually sends people to their death and is just like, we're just doing our jobs. It's weird, but it works. I mean, Nisha Nair is a great actress. She can clearly play a variety of different roles. But just watching those two roles of Elaine and the female programmer back to back, it's brilliant. She just shows how good of an actress she truly is. And of course, at Christmas, we got the return of Penelope Wilton back once again in the role of Harriet Jones for the Christmas Invasion, and the introduction of David Tennant as the Doctor. But there's series 1 done. I mean, if I like it, I might do more of these, kind of looking at series 2 through to 11 as time goes on. But there you go. A selection of guest stars that you may or may not have noticed in Doctor Who. Maybe go back and take a look. Until then, see ya.